Hey Luke, do you like Disney?
Well, not now that they've become woke.
Oh, that's good. Is one of the things that you dislike about Disney's woke agenda that they possibly maybe don't support destroying every single Palestinian in the world?
Yeah, that is the issue.
Well, in that case, I've got some good news for you. Daily Wire, Ben Shapiro's network, is making a rival Snow White movie. Trolling Disney. This is from The Hollywood Reporter. The conservative media company released a teaser trailer for Snow White and the Evil Queen, starring YouTuber Brett Cooper, following backlash over Disney's upcoming Snow White starring Rachel Zegler.
Wait, sorry, what role does Brett Cooper play? Like, aren't the two main roles Snow White and the Queen?
Yeah, so they're very woke over at the Daily Wire. I don't know, I guess... Oh, okay, so Brett Cooper is a woman. Isn't that weird?
Oh, okay, fair enough. Okay. I've never heard of a woman.
It's 2023, Luke. Women can be called Brett now.
Well, if they can't if they work for the Daily Wire. That's crazy that a woman is called Brett and works for the Daily Wire. That's great. So great. I know I'm looking forward to it. By the way, I do think Disney donated to Israel, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say that, yeah. Isn't the rival to the Disney version just the original?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Everything that gets remade is worse.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a movie which got remade and was worse after.
Yeah. Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out in the near and distant past. We give them a couple of watches and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host, Michael, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Luke. And this week we are celebrating the 25-year anniversary of the release of a terrifying film about a little cheeky penguin. This is, of course, Pingu. So, Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about... Oh, sorry, I misread. That's Ringu. Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about Ringu?
Sure thing, Michael, yes.
Ringu. You say Ringu was the drummer for the Beatles.
Great, yeah. It is just actually called Ring. At least that is the case on Wikipedia. Also, in Japanese, it might be pronounced Ringu. I think that's what you're...
Ringu.
Yeah. Oh, Ringu. Oh, like that.
Yeah. That is how it would be pronounced, obviously, in Japan.
Yeah. But anyway, the title of this movie is Ring. It is a 1998 Japanese supernatural psychological horror film directed by Hideo Nakata, based on the 1991 novel by Koji Suzuki. Yeah, thank you. I want to pronounce these names authentically, to try and not be offensive, by butchering them, with my...
No, yeah, that makes sense, yeah, and I appreciate that effort. Frankly, I love that effort long time.
Yeah, great. The movie stars Nanako Matsushima, Hayaruyuki Sanada, Rikiya Otaka, Miki Nakatani, Yuko Takakuchi, Hitomo Sato, Yutuka Matsushigi. There we go. I think I nailed that one.
You did.
Yeah. Isn't saying Japanese names just really...
I do enjoy it, if I'm being honest.
It's fun. It was distributed by Toho. And it was released on January the 31st, 1998. Of course, we are doing this movie, Michael, because it's Spooktober. I believe when this is uploaded, it'll almost be Halloween. So, yeah, it'll be very, very spooky. But, of course, this movie was not released in October. It was released in January, just like the horror movie we did last week as well.
Yes.
But Leprechaun. But
do the Japanese actually believe in Halloween, though?
I don't know, actually.
Maybe they have an excuse.
Well, they believe in Santa, but, of course, he's called Annual Gift Man.
Yes.
Of course. No, but obviously, I believe in Japan, at Christmas time, they all go to KFC, which is a weird tradition that they have over there.
That is quite strange.
Yeah, I'm not sure why. So maybe they like Halloween. I would suspect Halloween would be, a very Japanese thing. Like they like dressing up, right?
Yeah. They like being creepy.
Yes, they love being creepy. So yeah, and if they don't like Halloween in Japan, then someone needs to introduce it to them. But anyway, yeah, this again wasn't released in October, but it is its 25-year anniversary. Ringu. So Michael, can you tell me what the budget was for Ringu?
Yeah, it was $3 million.
Well, you actually went exactly half. because it was $1.5 million.
Exactly, double.
Yeah. So yes. Anyway, the box office though, Michaels, and this is going to be a bit tricky, of course, because this is a Japanese film, but of course it was released worldwide. So yeah, so tell me, how much do you think it made?
Yeah, it made $22 million.
How come you're so confident? Normally you just stammer for like 10 seconds.
I'm thinking, ultimately, if I just go for it, then, I'll go on my gut instinct, and that's bound to be right.
Well, you were close, so maybe you should do that more often. The box office total was $19.4 million. I'm not sure what it was in yen, probably 6 billion.
Yeah.
But yeah, somewhere around that. But yeah, this was a big hit, of course, and like I alluded to in the opening, it inspired an American remake just 4 years later called The Ring, which, yeah, I mean, it's not a bad movie, but it isn't as good as this one. I think it's fair to say. Yes, and that is the reason why we're doing this movie, of course, because it is heralded as one of the great horror movies that comes from Japan or East Asia, and perhaps in general as well. And of course, you were the one who wanted us to review this film. Isn't that right, Michael?
Yes, I did want us to review this film. Although I think I was looking at films that obviously had an important anniversary. And in a way, it's a bit of a departure, because I think we're on a slasher thing for quite a long period of time. And, actually, no, that's not true at all. We did The Exorcist.
Yeah, this is, of course, quite similar to The Exorcist with its...
It is similar to The Exorcist.
Well, yeah, with this supernatural demon kind of thing.
One of the things I'll say right out of the gate is that I think we've mentioned that neither of the two movies we saw prior to this were... Well, one of them was not scary at all, and the other one wasn't really scary in the conventional sense. And I would say this movie is pretty authentically scary. Which I think counts to a film's favour in terms of it being a horror. And I do think this film is very much a solid horror. I don't know if it's like the best movie ever, but I do think, yeah, as far as like if you just want to watch a horror, kind of spooky, creepy horror, this is a good film. And that's why I chose it, because it's a good film.
That's the thing. I would agree it's a good film. I would disagree on the fact that on the fact that you said it's scary.
You don't think it's scary because you are a big boy.
Well, there's just not a lot of scary moments in the movie, which is fine. Like, that's the thing. And you hate it. I am absolutely fine with horror movies not being that quote unquote like scary if there's an overall unsettling atmosphere, and there is a good movie that accompanies the horror. Interestingly, on Wikipedia, it doesn't say that it's a mystery movie, but that is very much the case. It is a mystery movie.
Yes.
This investigative journalist, surprise, surprise, is doing some investigating, and she's trying to find out, along with her ex-husband, what the hell is going on with this videotape, and therefore you are kind of enveloped in this mystery. You're invested in, what's happening, what's the cause of this videotape, what's the backstory. And I would say, like, at the beginning, it's quite scary, and then not really throughout the rest of the movie. It's really not until like the end. The end, there's a good, what you describe as like classic horror moments, like a scary horror moment when the girl comes out of the TV at the end. That is a good moment, but that's the thing. I am surprised you thought it was scary, because before that, I was invested in the movie. I was interested in what was going on, but I was not like scared, because there's not really any like horror moments, is there?
Yeah, I think for me, like I found, I guess it was like a combination of the anticipation of something scary happening alongside the fact that like when scary things did happen, it kind of made up. So it's kind of like the movie wasn't necessarily walls to wall scary, but I think like the scary stuff that did happen was very much up there as far as like significantly scary, I guess would be my logic.
Yeah.
But no, I can understand how some people might not find it scary. Some brave people out there.
No, but that's the thing. Throughout the middle part of the movie, like at the beginning, of course, you have these two girls and one of them dies, and the tension's good there, and it is actually scary, which we'll get to. But then, like, throughout the middle of the movie, it's just like this woman and her husband trying to investigate stuff. And, there's tension here and there, and there's flashbacks, and, there's, like, creepy imagery. But it's not, there's nothing which is like, oh, God, that's really scary. Shiver me timbers. No, like, nothing like that. It's just like, well, that's the thing. I think Shiver me timbers might be a better I guess description, because there is like this unsettling atmosphere, but there's no moment where like I jumped. Well, I wouldn't do this anyway, but there's no moment that I would suspect anyone would jump up and go, "Whoa," like that. Oh my god, that's so scary! I can't believe that just happened. Apart from again at the beginning and the end probably. But that's the thing. I still think it's a good movie. I'm still interested in it. How many nitpicks do you have?
I've got a one nitpick and one nitpick.
Okay, you go first then.
So it's just that enchanting DreamWorks intro is very tonally jarring. At least the version I watched, I guess it was like released in English-speaking countries with DreamWorks. So you kind of start off with like da, 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 like the music I associate with like Shrek, and that's how it began. And I was like, this isn't very horrific. But sometimes that does happen though. You get like horror films that have like I don't know, kind of nice companies that you don't associate with it. And then my nitpick, the thing about this is it's either a nitpick or kind of a nitpick, which is you may have noticed that I think towards the very end of the film, there's a shot that really centers the guy's like maths equation he did on the chalkboard, and I was like, they seem to be like focusing on it. There must be something going on there. So I like did some research. I did some boning up, and here's the thing: what I found is loads of people saying, "Oh, it's nothing. It's just random, blah blah blah." But then one person said that it was hard to tell, but he thinks it might have been that he was doing something in maths called ring theory, which it makes sense to me. There's a thing in maths called ring theory.
I've heard that.
But yeah, if that's true, that is like really cool. But yeah, if that is true, well done them.
Maybe it's they're thinking backwards. It's like, oh, this person knows a thing called ring theory. And they're like, oh yeah, that could be that, potentially. But yeah, that would have been cool if that's the case.
So it's kind of like it's a nitpick. Sorry, it's a litpick if it's true.
Yes. So I've got a nitpick and two litpicks. So my nitpick is where are the tentacles? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, you were upset.
This is a Japanese horror movie. I want to see tentacles. I want to see them going into particular areas that that I have seen go into before. As I'm just disappointed. No,
you're right.
Yeah, and that's I think of like I don't know. Is it racist to think that?
No, I think it's fine. I think if anything, it would be racist to not think it because you would be denying them the one thing they do best.
Yeah, exactly. That's very funny. And litpicks, two of them. Number one is the poster, which you can see on Wikipedia for this movie. I have to say I do like it. It is very like late 90s, early 2000s, but it is like demonic as well.
It's called The Ring because of the phone call, right?
Well, I was going to get into that.
Okay, good.
Again,
Tell me now.
It's just called Ring, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Not The Ring, yeah.
It's called Lord of the Rings because...
yeah, exactly. So my second litpick is, of course, this is the third Japanese film we have reviewed after Drive My Car, and what's the other one?
Shit. Oh, God. Old Boy? Have we done Old Boy?
Nope.
Oh, that's Korean anyway. God, I'm racist.
You're so racist.
I know I am racist.
Do you want me to tell you?
Me. Yeah, tell me.
Of course, it's Parasite.
That's funny.
Yeah, you see. Yeah, no. I know that's Korean. Don't worry. Yeah. No. But yeah. I was thinking. Yeah. Like we've watched two Japanese films in the last year. Drive My Car and this. Yeah, in both movies, both characters, drive cars. The main characters.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Yeah, and it's like almost. See, I haven't seen Drive My Car in a while, but isn't there like a mystery element to that as well? Like they have to like go find out. I could be confusing it with a different film, but like don't they like drive to the north of Japan and find out some kind of answer to a mystery? Yeah,
I think it's about the characters coming to terms with their grief.
Yes,
and that's why they drive to the north of Japan, to that island on the north of Japan.
Yeah, Sapporo.
Yeah, that's the city, Sapporo. Yeah.
Well, Hokkaido. That's the name of the island.
Yeah, the cold one at the top. Yeah. So that's what that happens in Drive My Car, and yeah, they're driving around in this movie. So there you go. So let's get into the plot now of Ring, Michael.
Yes. So The Ring.
No, Ring. A reporter and her ex-husband investigate a cursed videotape that is rumored to kill the viewer 7 days after watching it. Critic Mark Commode praised the film as timeless terror.
What does he know about horror?
With its combination of old folk devils and contemporary moral panics. Yes, you got an old devil. Again, no surprise, I guess Mark Kermode likes this. We compared this to The Exorcist. You, of course, said it was his favorite movie. Hey, you got an old-timey like devil in this movie. You know, this demon in the form of a little girl, of course. And yeah, you have contemporary moral panics, which we actually said were not really explored in The Exorcist, even though some people interpreted that as the case. But I definitely think there is a stronger case for moral panic being a theme in this movie, which we will get into later. And he said it appealed both to teen and adult audiences alike. But yeah, obviously the plot is, you know, like I said before, it's like it's a mystery, which, you know, I like mysteries. I think mysteries are very, like, you know, easy to get into if they're decent, and, you know, this one obviously is quite compelling, right?
Yeah, I think, like, you know, the big comparison I wanted to make to The Exorcist, and I think it's good that it shares this connection to Exorcist because it's a strength. It's similar in how, like, methodical they are. It's not quite the same. The Exorcist, obviously, in The Exorcist, there's just the woman, the mum, and she's kind of very unwilling to believe that it is, a possession. But there is that similar thing of basically just trying to methodically come up with a solution to the problem, and that kind of sense of powerlessness in terms of not being able to find the solution. And of course, I mean, in some sense, this film's almost even more like that because she doesn't even find out the solution until right at the end of the movie. You know, that mum in The Exorcist, she should count herself lucky. She worked out what it was with like a good 30 minutes to go in the film. But no, yeah, that aspect of it's almost like just we've got to find the solution and don't really know what it is.
Yeah. There was more skepticism, of course, in The Exorcist, which, you know, I think you could have
the skepticist.
You could have added some skepticism in this movie, I guess. But the thing is, it's hard to do that when you decide. Of course, this movie was based on a novel. So you can't really change that much of it. Although I do believe they changed some aspects quite significantly, like the gender of the main character. I think that was changed.
Oh, that sounds pretty woke to me.
Yeah, they made her a woman. Wow, unbelievable.
At least she wasn't a minority.
Yeah,
because it's set in Japan.
Of course, no. No, she had a O-level blood type, so she was a minority.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you know, like the Japanese are obsessed with blood types, by the way.
Really? That's so horrendously unsurprising.
Yes, exactly. It's like, well, we can't really be racist because we all look the same. So how do we, you know... Okay, blood types. There we go. That's a nice way to be racist. Now, I do think that like they are like kind of obsessed with it. I don't know. Like, I'm kind of joking, but then again, I'm not sure. You know, Japan's a weird place.
Yeah, so. Japan is, all things being equal, a weird place.
Yeah. So yeah, essentially the father is the ex-husband, the dad or whatever. He is psychic, which means that like the natural skepticism kind of gets thrown out the window early on because it's like, well, you have a character in this movie who is a psychic. Okay, well, they're going to naturally believe what is happening. Therefore, you can't, you know, like have this element of skepticism if you choose to have one of your main characters be a psychic. So there you go. That's why that wasn't really possible. So Adam Smith of Empire Online finds the film throttled by its overcomplexity, duff plotting, and a distinct lack of actual action, which I'd agree with him on the end, but I don't think that's a problem. Like I've said many times, I don't think, you know, movies that lack action are a problem because when the action happens, it's even more impactful, you know. And in terms of duff plotting, I don't think the plotting is duff. That just means like bad or
I guess so. Yeah.
I don't think it's that. It's that complex. Maybe it's a bit complex with all the characters at the end, with like because there's the doctor, there's the brother, there's the mother, there's the daughter, and you got to know about all their shit. But like it's not that complicated. Maybe they could have simplified it a little. Kermode emphasizes that one is inclined to conclude that it is the telling rather than the content of the tale that is all important. And I think that is also the case. You know, it's got a slow pace.
Yeah, definitely. I think like this movie is definitely what they call a slow burn. I think I definitely can understand where that whole the plot's a bit unnecessarily complicated thing comes from. And I will say I don't think it works to the movie's benefit that there's this whole thing about like explaining exactly why this person. I suppose like that's another example of where The Exorcist maybe is slightly stronger as a movie because The Exorcist doesn't explain like the whole backstory of the demon and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but this is a Japanese movie, and in Japanese media, you always have to explain everything. Well, exactly. That's the whole. I saw someone on Twitter recently make the point that like the reason why autistic people like anime is because anime like explains everything in excruciating detail.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And I was like, you know what, that actually makes sense. But now, like, I'm even less inclined to be convinced that anime is actually good, because it's like, like when your main argument for it is like, well, you know, it's good for autistics.
That's the thing. I have watched some good anime, and while you're watching it, characters will something like good happens. You know, it's like, oh, that's a really nice moment, and a character will just explain what's happening. It's like,
yeah,
what the fuck? Why? Like, we can see what just happened. Why is that?
Yeah.
Why should you say? And there was a couple of moments in this movie where I was like, oh yeah, this is a Japanese film, because it was when fucking the sidekick guy, obviously the husband or the ex-husband, says the video is what is the fucking girl called?
Tomoko?
No, the demon.
Oh, Sada?
Sadako. Sadako. Yeah, he said the video is Sadako's rage, and I was like, well, yeah, I you know, he's not wrong, I guess. Of course, you know, he's right, because that is, you know, a line in the movie, and I doubt he's the character is not meant to be incorrect about these things. You know, he's a character who's smart, so that you have to interpret that as, oh yeah, that's correct, but like they don't leave it up to interpretation. You know.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Which isn't good. They need to do better, Japan.
Yeah, no, I mean they just like to be literal, which, you know, I guess is sometimes that's not really that big a deal, but yeah, again, the anime example I think is a case of, oh yeah, they just can't help themselves. Every little detail needs to be explained. Anyway, Michael, let's get on to I guess the legacy of this movie, because when did you first hear about The Ring?
I first heard about it when my dad was watching the American remake, and I watched it too, which would be, I guess I must have been, it was quite young. It was one of like the first horror movies I watched, so I might have been like 9 or 10, and my dad was watching the American remake, and I kind of only saw like the tail end of it, but then he explained there was also a Japanese one. But obviously this was back in the past, before computers had been invented, so I couldn't look up. I couldn't see. So yeah, it took me a while to get around to watching the original.
Yeah, I remember growing up hearing the story about, oh yeah, this videotape, and if you watch it, you know, this horror movie about a videotape, you watch it, and within 7 days you die. I didn't really know there was a Japanese original, but I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. You know, that makes sense.
It's a good concept.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get into the concept in a bit, but yeah, just in terms of its legacy, it had influence on Western cinema and gained a cult status in the West. Of course it did. Throughout the 80s and 90s, Hollywood horror had been dominated by the slasher subgenre, which relied on on-screen violence, shark tactics, and gore. Again, none of that in this movie, which is why I said it's not like scary, in like edge of your seat scary, which was what you kind of implied earlier. And again, that's why I push back against that, because it's like, well, it's kind of a counter to what you would expect from like typical scary horror movies, you know.
Yeah, well, I think like the one thing about scary, I'll say this. So obviously, you know intimately the floor plan of my bedroom.
Okay.
And no, basically, I think this is also true of yours as well. There's a little kind of offset part of my bedroom, which is where I record this, which helps to avoid big echoes. And then there's like the main part of my bedroom off to the side. And usually, when I'm in this part of my bedroom, I have my light on here, but I don't have my light on in the main part of my bedroom. So right now, I'm talking, and there is kind of a quite dark, open space next to me.
Oh, okay.
And when I was watching this movie, I just found like just the corner of my eye, like kind of just peering off into the darkness, just expecting to see something moving in the shadows. So it's kind of like that kind of energy. I think I've said this before, like one of the tests for me when I watch a movie, if I want to see whether it's scary, is whether if like after I've seen the movie and like I'm in a kind of dark split space kind of on my own, if I have that like just sense of slight unease, like, ooh, I don't quite feel entirely comfortable. And I definitely had that with this film. Like, you know, I would not have wanted to go to a dark place on my own after having seen this film.
Yeah, there's a couple of nice shots in this movie, and it's in the girl's house. What's she called?
Are you saying girl, or you mean like you're talking about like the prologue scene?
Yeah, Tomoko. That's what she's called.
Yeah.
Where and you see the little kid walk upstairs, and he's in the light, and you know the camera's in a place which is dark, you know, and he walks towards the darkness and towards the room that Tomoko died in, and of course also. Then the aunt, who of course is the main character, Reiko, I think she's called, does that as well. And yeah, I can imagine, of course, you know, just those shots. If you're replicating that in real life, if you're in a light area and there's this dark area, yeah, maybe you find it a bit scary. Yeah. Ring, whose release in Japan roughly coincided with the Blair Witch Project in the US, helped to revitalize the genre by taking a more restrained approach to horror. Again, I agree. It's a restrained approach to horror, which we talked about with The Exorcist, and I think The Shining does that as well. There's large, I guess, there's sections in The Shining where just nothing much happens in terms of like horror moments, and then of course towards the end it's gets good, as it were, but it was good before that, of course. But a restrained approach to horror works. I like that approach more than because you can concentrate on making a better movie. Leaving much of the terror to the audience's imagination. Again, like often, what your imagination can conjure is often scarier than whatever a filmmaker can produce in a movie,
Yeah, I think like this movie has a lot of like the anticipation is the intense part. And I do think that probably does count against the scariness when you are rewatching it, to be fair.
I guess, yeah.
Because for me, there's always that sense of, well, there's not always that sense, that's very much not the case, because like I just said, when you're rewatching it. But I think like there is definitely, especially if you don't really remember that well, or you've never seen it before, that sense of like, well, some scary stuff does happen, and it's like subtle things, but the fact that at any moment it kind of keeps you a little bit on edge. I think probably the film would have been slightly stronger if it had even more like kind of subtle things. Like obviously when she sees the reflection of the girl on the TV screen, that's like an example of a kind of strength, where it's just like, you're like, oh, yeah, like that's creepy. If something like that happens again, that would be scary. But I don't think they do that necessarily as much as they could have.
Yeah. No, but that's fine, really. Anyway, so the film initiated a global interest in Japanese cinema in general, and Japanese horror in particular. A renaissance which led to the term, what do you think the term was for Japanese, horror revival?
Oh, horror revival. See, I was going to say Jollywood, because I didn't know, but yeah, horror specifically. J. Does it have anything to do with J?
Yes.
Jorah?
No, just J horror.
J horror. Okay, I thought it was going to be Jorah.
No, yeah, I love that. Just something's big in Japan. Put a J next to it, and in Korea, put a K next to it.
In my head, like my first thought was before I suggest it would be a J thing, I thought it was going to be Spookio.
Oh, Spookio! Oh. No, not that. J horror. New Asian horror. Well, that's a new term. Resulted in further successful releases such as Ju-on, The Grudge, and Dark Water. Not to be confused with the 2019 film Dark Waters, starring Mark Ruffalo. Yeah.
Also, Ju-on, not to be confused with the 2023 horror, the Israeli occupation of Palestine.
Okay. The Ring was remade in the US, of course, in 2002. And yeah, I just like, there is nostalgia for that period where it's like, oh, J horror, oh. Like, look at all these weird Japanese movies. And of course, you couldn't access like movies instantly, like on the internet, like nowadays. So there was some like fun in like exploring like this kind of cinema, like from all the way from Japan. And it's these, like, this movie was probably hard to get your hands on.
It was probably like The Ring. Like, as in, or like the movie itself. Like the film within the movie. That's what I'm saying. Yes. Like the video.
Yeah, no, I got you. Yeah, and it's just, all of that is kind of gone now. Anyway, so we're going to get into the movie now, Michael. So during a sleepover, high schoolers Tomoko and Masami discuss an urban legend about a videotape that curses its viewers to die in 7 days after a foreboding phone call. It is weird that they discuss this and like one of the characters actually has experienced that. I don't know. They could have done that a bit better, but whatever. Tomoko then confesses that last week she and her friends watched a strange videotape and received an inexplicable phone call afterward. So you see, if the conversation naturally came about, and then Masami, the girl that did not die, mentions this this legend, and then Tomoko's like, wait, that sounds like exactly what happened last time, or last week. Yeah, so that would have been better. But anyway, Tomoko witnesses the TV turn on by itself and is killed by an unseen presence. Again, this is a very good start. This was scary. This was one of the few times in the movie where it was scary and you knew something was coming because it's a prologue. There's a lot of tension. The fake phone call when it's her mother calling, that's great.
Yeah, the good old fake out, which, like I will say nowadays I've been trained. I don't know if I mentioned I watched a show called, I won't mention it, but there's a kind of a horror show that I've been watching recently, and they To be fair, they don't rely on it as much as I expect them to, but like every single time there's like a moment where someone's like about to find something and then they look and there's nothing, I'll just immediately be like, it's going to turn around and it's going to be there. Like that's it. Like it's like, oh, where is it? Oh no, not there.
Yeah.
Monster, boom.
They do wait a couple of minutes though.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, so they don't fully go for it.
Yeah. So that's better. That's a better way to do it. So yeah, let's talk about the concept, Michael. This horror concept of this videotape.
Yes.
Of course, it is cursed. Whoever watches the tape dies 7 days after doing so. That is a very good premise for a horror movie. That is very good. It creates like this mystery element, of course, and it's a very weird thing, you know.
Well, I mean, I like how they can really lean into the whole like the fact the tape itself can be creepy, and it's also, and I don't know, like maybe we'll talk about the tape itself later on.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's fine in that case. But yeah, like I definitely agree that the concept itself is really clever. And I think, you know, one of the people you were mentioning, I can't remember who in the reviews, was saying how it was like an interesting kind of combination of old kind of mysticism with modern technology. And I think it is a very good kind of use of that, you know, those two things meeting. Yes,
which we'll discuss later in the themes. But yeah, also what I really like about this concept, it creates a ticking time bomb situation. Like, you know, I don't know if there's a better term for that, but, you know, throughout the movie, of course, there's this sense of, like, urgency because, you know, we've only got 7 days, so we have to solve this mystery. You know, we have to, you know, we got to go and do this, do that, and that's really good. So there's a time limit, and that, of course, increases the tension and the anxiety from, of course, the main characters. So, yeah, that's a really nice plot device, I guess, as well. So, the film's title, Ring, can be interpreted in several ways, by the way, Michael. Such as alluding to the never-ending cyclical nature of the ring curse/virus. So yeah, and that's what people have said. It's kind of like a virus, you know, almost. Yeah. Another interpretation is that the ring relates to the phone call, which warns those that view the video tape that they will die in 7 days. Which I think is probably what the original title was, you know, of the novel, of course, because this was a novel first. I imagine that's why the author titled it Ring. But of course,
well, the interesting thing about that is that the American version, which obviously is the one I saw first, relies much more heavily on the telephone thing, because basically in that version they get a call every single day. So it's like you get calls like 7 days, and then the next day they get calls like 6 days, which is, you know, actually, to be fair, kind of like a cool, creepy thing. But yeah, they definitely, with the American version, it's 100% about the phone call ring.
Yeah,
because they really like the phone call thing in the American one.
I'm not sure that's necessarily better, honestly.
I think like it creates that sense of foreboding, but, you know, obviously, you know, that kind of inevitability, but obviously at the same time you say it's a bit hacky.
Yeah,
swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, so I do think, you know, it makes sense that the phone call is why the movie is called Ring.
Yeah.
But also it does work with the cyclical nature of it. You know, that's a deeper meaning. That's great when the title of a movie or a piece of media, you have the explicit meaning and then the actual, you know, metaphorical meaning, you know, at the same time. We see at the end of the movie a ring of light from the bottom of the well where Sadako's body was left to decompose, which could also be an explanation, right?
No, yeah, it could be, yeah. So Ring of Light, isn't that just, am I crazy? I thought it was like the reflection of the light from the torch. Is that what I'm thinking of?
Yeah, but it still creates a ring.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. It is, yes.
So, Reiko, I need to do it in Japanese. Reiko Asakawa, Tomoko's aunt and a journalist investigating this urban legend, attends her funeral and learns that 3 of Tomoko's friends who watched the tape with her all died at the same time she did. I like how the aunt, of course, Reiko, finds out that the girls, the students were talking about, was her own niece. Or one of the girls that the students were talking about was her own niece. That this girl died, and it's someone I know, Tomoko, and therefore the prologue connects to the main story. And sometimes there's not that big a connection, but I like that. There's an actual connection there that really does motivate her to investigate, what's happening. Would you say that's the case?
Yeah, I would say that's definitely a strength. And obviously, there's no sense in which it's like contrived that she would be connected to it, because obviously, she's a random person. Like, the fact the movie is about her is why she's connected. So, it makes sense she would be connected because she's the one the movie's about.
Okay, so Reiko visits the cabin where the four stayed and finds an unmarked videotape. It contains brief, seemingly unrelated scenes accompanied by screeching sounds, and ends with a shot of a well. After watching, Reiko sees an apparition and receives a phone call emitting the screeching sounds from the tape. Convinced she has been cursed, Reiko takes the tape and leaves the cabin. Look, like this is what I put down. I know she is an investigative journalist, but the last thing I do is look at that tape, you know?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think like if they wanted to make it make a bit more sense, like it could be that she watches it kind of casually as part of doing her job, because like there's a moment where they're like editing the tape or like going through it and things like that. Like in the office, I was thinking like, okay, like I could believe that if you're like a normal person, you might just be like, you might almost like forget and just like, well, it's part of my job, and then you kind of just watch it by dint of the fact that you're working on it. But the fact that she's literally like, oh, I'm going to watch this out of like curiosity, yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that's particularly logical, considering again, obviously, like there is clear evidence, and also how willing she is to believe that she's been cursed. Because like if she's that willing to believe that she's been cursed, you'd think she would be willing to think twice before watching the video, you know?
Yeah.
Like if she was like completely unwilling to believe like the whole curse thing, it would make sense that she watched it, but she clearly wasn't that unwilling to believe it, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree, yes. So, I think the tape, Michael, is scary.
Yes.
And that is, it's very good because it's like just unsettling imagery, and of course it doesn't make sense at first, but it does, which is the correct way to, you know, because if none of it made sense, then it would feel flat.
No, yeah, absolutely. Like I think it was like such a clever move to just have the tape be completely cryptic. I mean, and obviously, you know, you then kind of understand the deeper meaning of it later on, but there's so much else they could have done in terms of like they could have like made it explicitly horrific or something like that, but just having it like make no sense, but at the same time just be really unsettling, is very clever. And I think like if that was like a singular strength of this film, it would possibly be like that decision right there, to have it be so it's just like you just watch the tape and just like, what was that?
Yeah. No, and that's the way it should be.
It reminds me of this is a very quick point, but like there's like this what's it called, like a creepypasta, and it's about these kids talking about this old TV show they used to watch, and I think it's something like in the original version there was just like this guy who was like an old-timey doctor, and he was called like Sawbones or something like that, but then there was like I think they like adapted it for TV or something, and they changed his name to the Skin Taker, and loads of people were pointing out, well, that's like ruins it, because like the point was that he was just like a kind of creepy guy who gave off like ominous vibes. But if he's called the Skin Taker, he's no longer just a creepy guy who gives off ominous vibes. He's like explicitly horrific.
Yeah.
And yeah, good subtlety.
Yeah, I know. So Reiko enlists the help of her psychic ex-husband Ryuji, examining a copy of the tape.
Luigi?
Sorry?
Luigi?
Yeah, no, of course. That is another.
That is a Japanese name.
That is another Japanese property, yes. Examining a copy of the tape that Reiko made, the pair find a cryptic message spoken in Oshima dialect and prepare to go to Oshima. I think it's quite convenient that her husband is a psychic and not like a janitor. But, you know, no offense to janitors, of course. But
yeah. You're just suggesting, like, it's not. I don't think it's really offensive to janitors to point out that they might not be entirely effective at solving supernatural curses.
Again, I obviously, look, it helped. I have no problem that there is a psychic character. I just think it's a bit too much for convenience that, you know, it's her ex-husband, you know, like it could, you know, could be someone else. I'm not sure, but whatever.
And there's not like an explanation for why, like, which is what I was kind of thinking at one point. I was like, wouldn't it make sense if, because obviously like there's a thing where the husband like dies and she doesn't, and you think like if there was like some clever way in which him being a psychic factored into it, but it doesn't.
No.
It is just convenience.
Yeah, and I thought at first perhaps he didn't get a phone call because he is a psychic.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But so that is an explanation, I guess, that, you know, and then the twist later on, you know, is more impactful because you think, oh, the reason why he didn't get the call has already been solved because he has these psychic abilities which may protect him somewhat or whatever. But yeah, I find the scenes of both of them looking at the tape, you know, really interesting, you know, because you're wondering what you're seeing as well. Like, I know it's in Japanese, and I know, you know, like you can't read the writing, but, you know, there's still some good imagery, and yeah, you're wondering, of course, what you're seeing, like what it means, and they're trying to figure it out. And I just find those scenes again really interesting, and that's a lot of the middle of the movie they're doing that. And yeah, that's I like that. That's for those reasons. I guess you agree.
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that investigation, that just, again, the fact the movie relies on the basically just confusion for the horror means that the mystery element works even stronger to its credit. And again, I mean, that's probably an area where this film's maybe better than The Exorcist, because I think in The Exorcist, like, the confusion wasn't that horrific. Like, most of the scary stuff or kind of supernatural stuff that happens in The Exorcist is just pretty explicitly scary, which, rather than this where it's, like, creepy.
Yeah, and I don't know, there is something, like, kind of compelling about two characters looking at like a videotape, or even one character, and just studying it, rewinding, and it's like, wait, go back, what's that? And trying to
that's true.
trying to spot some detail. And of course, with the horror element, you know, it works very well. So before departing, Reiko catches Yoshi. No, that's the dragon from Super Mario.
Yes.
No, it's not Yoshi. Is it a frog or a dragon or a dinosaur? I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's. I think he's a dinosaur.
Yeah, that makes sense. So. Yochai, I don't know how you pronounce that. Anyway, she catches Yochai, her son, watching the tape after being urged by Tomoko. So yeah, why is this kid drawn to the tape? You know, it could be your young people are drawn to watching the tape because they are drawn to disobeying their elders, I guess. You know, and that plays into the theme of the movie. Which we will get to eventually, right? But do you have any other theory of why, like, Tomoko came back from the dead to tell her cousin it would be to watch the tape?
No, not really. I mean, it could be to do with the fact that, like, obviously we know by the end of the film that getting other people to watch the tape helps you out. So maybe she's just like, she hasn't realized it doesn't work if you're already dead. No, I don't know. Yeah, I think like there's like a general tendency for like kids to have like some kind of weird connection to the supernatural in like a lot of films. Obviously, you see it in like something like The Poltergeist.
Yeah,
I said The Poltergeist, even though it's just called Poltergeist.
Well,
I'm just adding "thes" to so many film titles today, aren't I?
The reason why it happens here is because like this tape can like tempt the kids because you know they have a sense of curiosity. So yeah, that's why you know that trope exists, I guess. So yeah, we're going to talk about Reiko now neglecting her kid. Because that is one of the themes in the movie now, and of course, you know, it's a good time to bring it up because her kid is now, you know, 7 days away from dying.
Yes.
So Ruth Goldberg argues that Ring expresses ambivalence about motherhood. She reads Reiko as a mother who, due to the new potential for women's independence, neglects her natural role as homemaker in pursuit of an independent identity, therefore neglecting her child. Goldberg identifies a doubling effect where the unconscious conflicts of Reiko's family are expressed via the supernatural in the other family under Reiko's investigation. What would you say to that, Michael? Do you think Ruth Goldberg has a point?
Isn't that a type of machine that is really complicated?
I'm not sure. But
anyway, no, yeah. So, yeah, it is interesting. I mean, she is definitely a bit of an absentee mum. It's hard to say whether or not like. So I guess the argument is that there's some connection between that and the fact that obviously the family from which what's her name, Sadaka, like her family was also a bit dodgy as well. To put it mildly. Yeah, I mean, because I was going to say like one of the reasons just because if she's got a kid like hanging around her all the time, she can't really do as much investigating. But I don't know. Yeah, it kind of makes sense. I guess the one thing I would say against that though is that like the one time he actually watches the video and puts himself in danger, she's right there, and the only reason she can't do anything about it is because she's asleep. So I think if it was supposed to be like, oh, he gets put in danger because of her being a neglectful mother, he would have been put in danger at a time when she was away. That's, I think, my big debunk of Ruth Goldberg.
Yeah. I think the overall theme, you could read into that, definitely. I think there is something there, but yeah. Maybe not as explicit as the movie could have made it. So, in Oshima, Reiko and Ryuji learn about Shizuko Yamamura, the woman in the tape. Prior to her suicide, Shizuku gained notoriety following a public demonstration of her psychic ability organised by ESP researcher Dr. Ikuma, with whom she had an affair. When confronting Shizuku's brother, Takashi, the pair learn through a vision that during the demonstration, Shizuko's young daughter, Sadako, whose name is hinted in the tape, physically killed a journalist who decried Shizuko's abilities. Yeah, I think all of that really, the background is a bit complicated. Like we said, you know, there's the Dr. Akuma character, then there's the brother character, and then you have, of course, the mother, Shizuku. And then eventually you find out about Sadako. And I like the introduction of Sadako in this flashback. It's like...
Yeah, that's a very good... Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, the mother has just killed this journalist. And then it's like, no, it's not her, it's Sadako. And of course that links to, what we heard earlier. Or what, if you were Japanese, you could see the lettering in the tape saying Sadak. I think that's what it said.
Yeah.
So yeah, then that's a very nice reveal. But yeah, that's the thing. In general, it's a bit complicated, the backstory, but I do really like the flashback scene. I think the flashback scene was also needed rather than just characters telling it. And of course, what's really clever is because there's supernatural elements. Reiko is incorporated into the flashback, which I really do like. What do you think?
Yes, and then obviously she gets touched, which is like a pretty good example of like, I don't know, something kind of creepy. I do like that. I feel like this is definitely one of those like, and I guess this is probably a Japanese thing. It seems like everybody in this film is just kind of casually, mildly in touch with like the spiritual realm because it seems like she's kind of connected to the flashbacks, like she's physically there in some kind of way.
Well, I guess it's because she has been cursed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's why.
So, it's a bit like how Dean's able to see demons after he sells his soul to the devil. So, I agree, though. It's a good flashback.
Yeah, I like the idea that the video is, of course, Sadako's rage as well, which, like we said before, it's a bit shit that the ex-husband just goes out and says it. But yeah, she's putting curses on everybody as a revenge for her death, the way her mother was treated, etc. Yeah, that makes sense, and that gets us onto something else, of course, which is when they go back to the cabin. Reiko and Ryuji find a sealed well in the crawl space. Through another vision, they learn that Dr. Ikuma trapped Sadako inside the well. They conclude that Sadako remained alive and that the curse was born when a videotape recorded the rage she had projected. So this is, I think, a Japanese concept.
It's from back in the day when people were still worried that you'd capture their soul if you took a picture of them.
Yeah, well, so the rage she had projected, this is called thoughtography, and it's called nensha in Japanese. Yeah, so apparently this is something that of course it exists in the West, but it also exists in the Japanese as well. So it's when the ability to burn images from one's mind onto surfaces such as photographic film by parapsychic means.
Yes.
And that's a pretty cool thing for a horror movie, which of course hadn't really been done before, I think, because it says here on Wikipedia it's popularized because of the 1998 Japanese horror film Ring. So that's a good idea, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it 100% works as an explanation, and obviously the way that this past thing is connected to, past thing, I mean, like this kind of spiritual thing is connected to the contemporary technology, and I do think it's clever.
Yeah, I'm just reading. There was this guy called Tomokichi Fukure.
Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad he was called that.
Yeah, around 1910, basically, he claimed he had these powers, and basically he was capable of telepathically imprinting images onto photo plates, which he called nensha, which is kind of what Sadako does, but on a videotape, of course. When journalists found irregularities, their credibility was attacked, and then he was disparaged by the university and his colleagues and Fukure.
So this is like a real story?
Yeah, this is real, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting, yeah.
Eventually resigned in 1913. So Tomokichi Fukure resigned because he was like, oh yeah, I can telepathically imprint images onto photo. Doesn't seem like he could. I very much doubt it, but that's when
Luke, you're going to get haunted.
I know, that's where it started. Of course, in Japan, that's the first instant of this. So yeah, it's good that whoever wrote this, the original novel, probably made use of that story. Kind of like the Exorcist, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, based on a true event. Sometimes it's actually not just a hack thing people say.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't. I'm guessing it was inspired, by that event. Yeah, I'd be surprised if it wasn't, because that would be a kind of a crazy coincidence. From the same country as well, and very very similar story. So anyway, one of the themes in this movie, actually, before we get onto the ending, is you have this videotape, right, and that is a symbol of modern technology. Okay.
Yes.
But of course, Japan, they look. There's always this interesting dynamic in Japan where, of course, they seem like a very traditional country, but their tech industry is incredible.
Yes.
And that clash, I think, is kind of explored in this movie with the fact that, you have this traditional kind of demon, something from Japanese folklore, using modern technology to kill its victims. And obviously you could interpret that as, this is traditional Japan, like fighting back against like a more modern Japan with its modern technology. That is definitely a theme. That is probably explored in this movie, right?
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I think spirits and like old world forces kind of being angry at modernity is an interesting idea to explore, and I suspect this movie definitely is exploring that as something.
Yes,
something worth engaging with.
So the videotape again is interesting because there's a section on Wikipedia about why the videotape was used. So critics have discussed Ring's preoccupations with Japanese tradition and its collision with modernity. Colette Ballman identifies in the figure of Sadako, Ring utilizes the vengeful Yori archetype of conventional Japanese horror. And they're ghosts, essentially. Okay, so it's, dead spirits, but not, I guess, young females specifically. But of course, that's common in, like, Western, horror. You have these ghosts who are, like, young females. And, and that is... Yeah. I would imagine, that's common in Japanese horror too. She argues how this traditional Japanese figure is expressed via a videotape which embodies contemporary anxieties, in that it is technology through which the repressed past reasserts itself. But that's the thing. I like this kind of thinking, but I have a problem because Sadako, of course, there is kind of a contradiction because Sadako was like young. If she was old, it would make more sense with the theme.
Yeah.
It would
this is always those problems with those themes. It's like, it sounds really nice, and you think, but there's a lot of stuff in the movie that just doesn't quite gel with it.
Well, that's
you stupid movie buffs.
I think that's what this movie was going for, though. I think that is a legit theme.
Yeah.
But it's just, Sadako, it doesn't make sense with a theme that she's young, like she's the daughter. If she was older, somehow, that would make more sense. Like, this modernity is killing you, and the older taking their revenge, etc. Via these videotapes in a kind of ironic way, but kind of showing the the anger that they have with this modern technology. Yeah, and of course, like, that theme fits in well with Japan as a country because of what we described, this clash between, like, a very, Japan is traditional, but at the same time it's like very futuristic almost to us, So we get so they get in the well, Reiko and Ryuji, and when draining the water, they find Sadako's remains. Reiko's 7-day deadline passes, and she remains alive, leading them to...
Yeah, sorry, I just want to say, I feel like you're going over one thing that's very important to me, which is it was, to me, pretty gosh darn... I don't know, like, I actually did jump when the hand comes out of the water and grabs her. I wasn't expecting it. I actually found that scene of her, like, basically looking for and finding this dead girl's body in, like, a well. I think it was a pretty, I don't know, not scary, but very unsettling, because it's like a confined space, uncomfortable, and like the idea of being in a confined space with a dead body. It's like the most terrifying episode of The Simpsons ever, where Homer finds a corpse in the quarry. But yeah, I just wanted to give it a shout out for being so scary.
The thing is, I don't think it was that scary because she is looking for the body. So that, for me,
still, I wouldn't want to find it though.
What do you mean you wouldn't? Well, in that situation, you would. So
yeah, but I wouldn't.
That's the thing.
Well, I mean, the funny thing is, actually, just while we're at it, they don't really have like a very good reason to think that, or as far as I can tell, like maybe I missed something, but do they have like a good reason to really think that finding the body will solve their problems, or are they just like speculating?
Well, that was the point I was going to make before you rudely interrupted me.
You're welcome.
So they don't, it's not explicit, but I think they think, if we lay her spirit to rest, if we say, I'm sorry for what happened to you, then I guess they will not be cursed anymore.
Yeah, that is how it works in Supernatural.
Okay, great. Yeah. And of course, look, it's been 7 days, so maybe that worked. The next day, Ryuji's TV turns on by itself. Sadako's vengeful spirit staggers from the well and out of the TV, advancing towards Ryuji and killing him. Reiko, who'd been trying to call Ryuji at this time, hears his last moments over the phone. Yeah, this is, of course, what I talked about at the beginning. This is, a scary scene. One of the only, there's not a lot in this movie, but this definitely is one of them. And yeah, it's great to have, I guess, your scariest kind of scene right at the end of the movie, and this explains how these people die. Of course, this girl comes out of the TV, which is a great idea. It's a nice twist as well, because you think, it's all over. It's Ryuji's fine, of course. He's not gonna die. The curse has been lifted, etc. And we'll discuss the substance of the twist, but yeah, in general, it is a great twist. It's a great ending to the movie. There's not a lot of horror, but this is a great horror ending. And but perhaps because there's not a lot of horror, it makes the ending even more impactful. Some might say, but yeah, what do you think about this moment?
Call me some, because I would say that. No, yeah, I think like definitely, there's always a trade-off with the whole less is more approach, because sometimes less is less and more is more. But in this case, I do think like there's a sense of, because the film's been building up so much to this, ghost being this like terrifying presence, and you've hardly seen it at all, and also like the fact the video is so cryptic. I think it's what's the word? There's like a phrase for it, like when you Rubicon. That's it. It's a crossing the Rubicon moment, where this thing goes from like being this like cryptic video where you barely see anything. Suddenly, it's like the video becomes very real because you're actually seeing like this woman come out of the well, and then like she actually comes out. I think it's I think it's in a way one of the most effective horrific moments ever. I don't think this movie overall is like fantastic 10 out of 10, but like that's like one of those moments where if it was in a 10 out of 10 movie, I would say like, well, that moment there is one of the reasons why this movie is like a 10 out of 10, like how terrifying is that? So yeah, I think it's a really great moment.
Yeah, no, it is a great moment for sure. So guided by an apparition, she this is Reiko, deduces that the actual way to survive the curse is copying the tape and showing it to someone else within 7 days. Reiko is alive because she accidentally did this. Desperate to save Yayushi, Reiko drives to her father's home to show him the tape. So here's the thing: I wasn't like the substance, like the twist is good, it's compelling, of course, but the substance of the twist is like, so Reiko only got out of dying because of a technicality. That's what it feels.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like to me. Oh, so you made a copy of the tape. That's how you got out of it. And I guess there is something to this with the theme at the end. I think there is a thematic reason behind it, of course, potentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, I don't know, feels like too much of a technicality, But yeah.
Yeah. I'd actually completely forgotten that the whole you have to show the tape to somebody else was like part of this. I think one of the reasons being because obviously that's also a thing in It Follows. Remember, you got to have sex with someone else. But yeah, so suddenly when that happened, I was like, oh yeah, that's like the thing with this, because I always thought it just, there's nothing you can do. And I was like, oh wait, no. It is one of those weird things though, because it kind of retroactively, I do agree, like, I think like the way it's delivered, the way it's found out, it isn't great. And I also think another problem is it kind of retroactively makes it a bit less scary, because again, like one of the strengths of this inevitability, 7 days, what are you going to do? And I think like, I don't know, the fact that it's quite easy to get around it kind of takes away from the scariness.
Yeah, I think that is the case. I'm not so. I think that is a good point. Yeah, the fact that it's easy to get around it does perhaps take away from the scariness. And you could potentially, just keep showing the tape to, or show the tape to someone who's like,
about to die,
has terminal cancer, and it's like, okay, well, there you go. So that stops the cycle then, of course. Yeah, it's just like, oh, yeah, it's just like a technicality that she did that, she didn't even realize. That's like when it's like, it's kind of unsatisfying, but there is a thematic ending, reason for the ending, perhaps. So, Jane McCroy reads the ending hopefully. If the characters therapeutically understand their conflicts, they can live on. I'm not sure. Does Reiko understand her conflict, and that's why she lives? Like, I don't think that's, she copied the tape to show fucking Ryuji because she didn't want him to be affected by the curse. Anyway, Balmain, however, is not optimistic, and I think this is the correct reading. She reads the replication of the video as technology spreading virus-like throughout Japan. And yeah, the latter explanation seems more plausible. Again, we're talking about this. If this movie has a theme, it's this theme of like, technology corrupting like Japan, and traditional Japanese society not being happy about it. I mean, for example, like the victims are like kids who are rebelling against their elders in one way or another, possibly. And indeed, one of the victims is almost Reiko, who's of course a single mother. And not just a single mother who works, who possibly neglects a child, and of course
A slut, as we like to call
Okay,
them.
calm down. And Japan is, of course, a very misogynistic society. Even today, it is. It's surprising how misogynistic it is. So that again, it's not a hopeful ending at all. It's an ending which is quite depressing, if anything. So that saves the ending a bit for me. Reading that explanation, that it ties into the movie's theme, overall theme. What do you think?
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, obviously, there are a few reasons why I think the kind of ending isn't so great, but I think that, I don't even know if it's, I think it being to do with technology definitely makes sense, but I think even absent that, it's just the kind of cynicism of this is something that you just pass on to someone else. It gives it a kind of more horrific edge, just in terms of, being kind of miserable, like a downer ending. In terms of it being about technology specifically spreading and the danger of that, I think that makes sense. As a reading, yeah.
So I think now it's time to conclude. Do you want to go first, Michael?
Yeah, you know what, I would like to go first, Michael. There's lots of things that are, I think, very effective. I'd say the main strengths of this movie are 1, the subtlety, 2, the kind of inevitability combined of like the methodical, we've got to find out what's going on, and 3, when the movie actually does deliver and you have that moment at the end where it's like, here's the horror, it goes for it. Which is kind of, it's very similar to Parasite in that, like, Parasite has that one scene that's really horrific and it just goes for it, but the rest of the movie is like very slow burn. The things that count against this movie, I guess, 1, I'm just going to say the Japanese stuff, the way all the characters feel the need to over-explain everything. I do think the fact that the plot is a bit convoluted and basically gives you a complete backstory on the ghost is less compelling than, something like It Follows, where you just don't know what it is. It's just, a mystery. So it's a mixed bag. I'm still going to give it a middling 7. I do think there are some things that this film doesn't have going for it, but I think its main strength is when that scary moment happens and it crawls out of the TV. That is good. And to be honest, if you want to make like a thematic thing, it's kind of like maybe the idea of technology. We think it's all just what's happening on a screen, but it comes out and it infects society. There we go. That's my thematic reading right there.
Yeah.
So I think that's like, if you were to make me distill it down to one thing, I would say that scene alone is one of the reasons why I would regard this film very positively. Obviously, it's also worth noting holistically, the way the film builds up to it is also a very good strength. So yeah, middling 7 for me.
Yeah, I'm going to give this one a 7.5. As well, which is, I thought, is it as good as The Exorcist for me, which I gave an 8? I was like, I think The Exorcist is slightly better, so 7.5. Again, it's a really, solid movie. I like your interpretation at the end. What happens, on the TV does eventually come out and infect society. And obviously that's taking it one step further, of course, from what people were discussing. But I like that. That's good. And I think that could very well be the case. And again, that's something that is really nice to watch in this movie. The build up, like you said as well, and then eventually, them solving this mystery, them looking at the videotape, the general creepiness, and then of course the ending is a fantastic ending. I think a 7.5 out of 10 is fair. What are we doing next time, Michael?
Well, next time we're not entirely abandoning the horror thing. It will be the end of Spooktober by the time we're back. But we're looking at Twilight, and I believe that's because it's the 15-year anniversary, is that right?
Yeah, the 15-year anniversary of Twilight, yes.
So obviously that is about vampires. Some might say it's not necessarily as scary as Leprechaun.
No, vampire movies, they're so scary, so I can't wait to discuss Twilight. We don't normally do 15-year anniversaries, but we had to make an exception for Twilight. We are doing that, by the way, as well, because there's another, like, tween fucking movie. Well,
oh, really?
There is a new Hunger Games movie coming out called The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes.
Oh, yeah. So obviously we decided to review Hunger Games.
Well, no, we didn't. We had to cut Hunger Games, but I was like, you know what? It's a similar genre, these fucking preteen or early teen movies that are aimed predominantly at girls. I would imagine. Well, Hunger Games, was it aimed at girls? I think it was because of Katniss.
Yes,
and obviously Twilight definitely was, obviously there's love stories and there's conflict and all that, and it's a YA, I guess.
I feel like this is irrelevant, but I feel like there's no way that they're not going to do a prequel that's going to make it worse, because I feel like a lot of people pointed out the situation in the Hunger Games it doesn't really make that much sense, but it's just a fun premise for a goofy movie or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like if they're trying to explore, because apparently it's a prequel.
Yes, it's
that like sets up the situation. It's like, that sounds lame.
Yeah, well,
prequels are always bad.
It's set like in 75 years before the first Hunger Games.
Yeah.
You know, it's fucking President Snow, the evil guy, and he's like he's a hot like 20-year-old, you know, who's dating I think Rachel Ziegler actually. Or he's falling in love, whatever. I'm not sure. But yeah, so join us next week for Twilight. And Spooktober kind of continues because Armed Vampire's scary. So join us for that. Next time, who have you been, Michael?
I've been Michael.
And I'd like thank you for listening to our review of Ringu. And arigato. No wait, what's goodbye in Japanese?
Oh crap! I know mushi mushi, but that's not that either. Let's see.
Is it
goodbye
konnichiwa?
Japanese?
You know, it's
No, that's
no, but it's,
oh god! You know what it is?
What?
Sayonara.
Yeah, sayonara.